Good morning, everybody. Chris Burnley here, CEO of CoreFact, and welcome to CoreFact's second Facebook Live webinar. We're learning how to do this better, but it's an exciting new way for us to test out marketing. And today, what we want to do is share with you some tips and strategies that top agents are using to market themselves, and in particular, talk a little bit about how you can start doing that during the holidays. Now, we sent out a survey about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, after our first Facebook Live webinar, and we asked you what you wanted to hear, and we got a bunch of results. And what we did is we ranked those and took the top 3. So I'd like to share those with you now. And before I do that, though, I want to let you know that at any point in time during this presentation, we're looking for your feedback and your questions, and you can type those in. And we'll be looking for those and answering them as we go. So welcome again. All right. So what we received feedback on was the top 3 things were: how do I generate consistent and qualified leads? I need a farming strategy that works for me, and I need a plan to stay on top of my work. And so what we thought we would do is talk a little bit about today, share some insights on how to go about finding new lead sources, working with referrals, and learning really how to ask for the business, which is a key component to any lead strategy. And then how to implement those strategies and what some of our top producing agents are doing now. And then how to make an effective plan as we go into next year and sticking with that. And we have some tools for that, and we can share some things at the end in terms of documents with you that will help you put all that together. So with that, again, it's Chris with CoreFact, and for those of you who aren't familiar with CoreFact, we are a real estate marketing company. We've been doing this for 15 years now, working with top producing agents all across the U.S., as well as most of the top tier brokerages with our enterprise solutions. So given that, I think we have something like 205,000 agents now. We get a lot of feedback and we see a lot of different strategies, and I think that really helps us understand what we can do better for you. But I think more importantly, as we're doing things like Facebook Live, we're really trying to get feedback, because even though we may work with thousands and thousands of agents, so few of them speak out, and that's why we feel that not only is brand important, but so is engagement, and we're trying to engage with you. Yeah. So at this point, I thought I'd introduce Chio. He's our VP of Creative Services here. He builds a lot of the strategies and works with what we'll call our Uber agents, the top 10% of the top 1%, right. And sees their strategies and helps them develop it. And so, Chio, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Chio. I'm the VP of Creative Services here at CoreFact. I've been in CoreFact for almost like the beginning of the time, really, when we first started. And a lot of times, my role in particular is, really not just the creative side of it too, but what's the strategy like? And so what I mean by that is really nailing down what we think is going to be the most effective plan for an agent. And it really depends. A lot of you guys are probably in different phases of your career in real estate. Some of you guys are maybe at the top end. Some of you guys are maybe 6 years in. There's some people who are kind of right at the beginning. So for you guys, type in, let us know where you guys are from. Obviously we work with so many agents around the nation, and for me, every strategy is almost a little bit different depending on that market and who that agent is and where they are in their career. So let us know. We'd love to just get more insight from you guys there. So yeah, with that said, today, I think, we're going to talk about the first topic here really is, how to find more leads. Where do we get leads at? How do we leverage like your sphere list a little bit more? And also, how do we learn to ask for the business? So I'm going to jump into this right now. One of the things that I want to really talk about is, where the lead sources are coming from. And a lot of times, if you're working maybe on Zillow leads, for example, they get to be pretty competitive at times. I know I work with tons of agents where they spend a good substantial amount of money working on Zillow leads. Come to find out is sometimes they're almost going down this dead end road, or it's always a very competitive type of space to kind of work with. What I always promote is one thing is that, how's your reputation like in that particular area or your neighborhood that you kind of market to today? And really, have you been consistent? Because when it comes to things like this, the first thing that tells me is when people say, hey, I don't have the leads to really work with, The biggest problem I think on the farming side is not that they don't have a plan, it's their commitment to that plan, you know. And so with that said, you know, a lot of times people around this time of year, it's a good time to reflect on, hey, what's my marketing been like this past couple of years or this past year, and has it worked? And for the stuff that hasn't worked, cut it out. Seriously, cut it out and let's look for something more effective. And what I mean by that is whenever I'm working with top producing agents, it's not necessarily, hey, I'm going to expand my farm from 5,000, 10,000. Obviously, that's a great approach. It's a great blanket marketing approach. But that's not really the solution they're looking for. They're really looking for things like, hey, how do I improve my reputation, right? So during this time of year, a lot of people, what they'll do is send out,
or even not just how do I improve my reputation, but how do I share the great reputation I already have?
Yeah.
You know, how do I add testimonials as an example to
Right.
My website, my direct mail, my Facebook and various things.
right? And you know, just the word testimonial, I just hate that word. Seriously.
Why?
Because it just has this thing like, it's like trying to reaffirm something. I mean, let's just change that word a little bit. For you guys out there right now, let's just erase the thought of testimonial and let's just go with recommendations.
Okay.
You know, so instead of saying, here's my testimonials, just say, here's my recommendations, right? That way it has a more appealing sense to it. So
what are what's the subtle difference there?
well, I don't know. I think it's more personal. It's more approachable,
Okay.
and I think it feels more of hey, like if I'm in some sort of like interrogation, I feel like I need some reputation. You know what I mean? But if someone recommended something to me, then I feel like that feels like a different type of philosophy, a different type of approach. I feel it's more complimentary and more approachable. You know,
Okay.
So with that said, a lot of times around this time of year, for myself, I work with a lot of these top agents. And what we like to do around this time of year is really show a portfolio of your sales this past year. And what I mean by that is, you know, a lot of these guys, they have sometimes like 40, 50, 60 listings. And you're not going to be able to show all of them, but you want to give that image of, hey, I'm successfully selling in this particular neighborhood.
Okay.
And a lot of times, agents like you guys put so much work in getting that listing, to market that listing, and then at the end of the year, you guys don't do anything with it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do something with it, because I think that shows so much more value. Reputation to me just jumps to another level once you actually start doing that. So, and I want to kind of show an idea of that for you guys real quick. So take a look at that. So this is like a year in review piece that agents kind of work on. It's mailed, it's kind of like a flat mailer. A couple of different samples too. And also too, this time of the year too, is probably the only time where you can almost go off brand. You know, a lot of people are always it's just too many listings. You know?
Right. And you know, so if I'm going out and door knocking at this time of the year, you know, I could build a portfolio like that, you know, print it out as PDF, and that would be a great thing to drop as well.
Right.
So it sounds to me like, you know, you put the investment into generating listings, and then you close the listing, and then basically it ends there. And it sounds to me like what you're talking about is really how to leverage that listing, you know, over and over and over, not only immediately after the sale, let's say just like a just sold type program, but really throughout the year,
Right.
and then maybe even throughout the decades. If, you know, let's say you've sold, you know, I had one agent I used to work with, and he worked in San Mateo, California. And he created this map and had all these little green dots all over San Mateo where he had sold homes.
Right.
And you know, he'd been doing this for, you know, a decade or more. And so at one point his marketing showed, okay, you know, these are all the homes I've sold in San Mateo.
Right.
And it literally looked like, you know, just this green blanket.
That's awesome.
And what it did, I think it kind of emphasized what you were talking about, how, you know, there's proof.
There is.
And you know, you talk about like social proof, and we talk about you know, proof from recommendations. And this is another kind of thing that you've already won. You've shown that you're a winner, and now I want to basically share that with the world. And how do I do that?
Right, and you know, showing the listing is one thing, but you know, earlier we kind of talked about, you know, recommendations versus testimonials. This is a great time to say, hey, recommended by your neighbor, and really talk up your services and how you really, you know, whereas maybe hand-holding a deal all the way through all the steps and stuff like that. I think there's so much that goes along with these recommendations, and people, you know, we're in a time where, especially in social media, like me, I'm a big Yelp guy, so I put in a lot of recommendations on places that I like to go eat and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure that's beneficial and provides tons of value for, you know, prospective sellers in this particular case, you know. So that's another good thing. The other thing I would really also want to kind of talk about too is just, and this is something that's kind of, for me, it's a little bit trendy. A lot of people today who go through and go through the process of getting a listing and then maybe doing the staging. One of the things that I really see today, and a lot of people really take advantage of this too, and this idea is getting a habit of really capturing your before and after. You know, there's a lot of people who, like I work with even today, where all they do is just show me this beautiful picture of a property, but they're not telling that story enough. And the reason why I say that is because there's so many, not even at the broker level or programs, but a lot of people are creating more of this concierge program. And with this concierge program, it is about kind of like above level services. You know, what's the white glove treatment kind of look like?
So Chio, I'm going to stop you one quick second there. So for the audience, you know, this is supposed to be interactive, and I just we're going to talk more about that. But this is also completely unscripted. So you know, we're just having conversations here, and we want to have conversations with you. So if you want to put in any of your comments at any point in time, go ahead and do that. So now, Chio, you're talking about, you know, agents doing concierge services and where they start even in the listing process versus, you know, where the property ends up and how it sells, and then showcasing that on the marketing changes. Maybe you can go a little more.
So this is the thing, right? A lot of times, even at the broker level today, they're creating broker programs, which is awesome, right? The agents have actually been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
They just haven't put no marketing behind it, right? And so what happens now is, you know, a lot of people who are getting the listings and they're working the deals, they spend the money on staging, but they forget to do the little things, right? To really show the services. Like I talk to agents, every agent's like, they always go, hey, I go above and beyond. But really show me what above and beyond really means, you know? And to tell that story, you almost have to put people into your daily work and what you do, you know?
Right.
If you didn't see where this home came from,
right.
and then you sold it above list price, and you know it was such in bad shape. I mean, there's so much clutter. Those are the things that I think a lot of sellers really resonate to.
Right.
And if you can tell that story and you put in that effort and get in the habit of, hey, you know what? It's not just about the staging, but how do I prep this home? Things like that, I think, goes a long way to really building that reputation, building that brand. You know, so.
And I know a lot of agents that I work with, they do showcase that, but the point where they actually show, you know, the potential clients, that is typically in the listing presentation. Right. But the thing is, the listing presentation is far too late. You know, by that time you've already, you know, you've got a lead. They've reached out to you, or you've reached out to them.
Absolutely.
You secured the listing appointment. Maybe they're meeting just with you, or maybe they're meeting with several other agents. Right. But basically, that's where you have to shine. And now imagine if, you know, you did that earlier, and you know, what you've done is you've raised the bar on the services that you have against all your competition.
Right.
And typically, you know, in any farm, at least that we see, you're generally going to be competing against, you know, 2 to 3 top producing agents in the area that are also providing, you know, similar services. And even though you go above and beyond, you know, if you're not communicating that, nobody knows.
Right.
And then ultimately, it comes down to the final countdown kind of thing, where you're in the listing presentation, and it really depends on how well you close that deal there.
Right.
Now imagine if you closed it ahead of time through your marketing.
Right.
And so I think these are, you know, are really good strategies. But if we can get back, and hello, Kat from Virginia Beach. You know, if we get back to the lead generation side, you know, we talked about how do you find more leads, and here we're really talking about things you do in your marketing to close the business. But I'm going to flip it a little bit, which is, you know, that reputation you talked about, Chio, and the recommendations, that's how you generate leads too. Now, it's one of these things where you put the cart before the horse, because if you're a new agent and you don't have a portfolio of listings, then you might have to start somewhere differently. But if you have had a few successes, and it doesn't always need to be in the exact area. I mean, maybe you worked with, you know, your family somewhere else and you helped them sell a listing, where you can showcase anything you did. What it boils down to, it sounds to me like, Chio, is that you're not just showing them what you do, you're creating a story about what you do, and then you're turning that story into a personal engagement.
Absolutely.
And that's a key strategy. So why don't you go a little bit further with that? and tell me, some of the kinds of things that people do to engage and create stories, and what are the tools and techniques that allow that to be possible?
Yeah, so one of the things I just want to go back into too is that a lot of you guys are, let's say if you're starting your career in real estate, and right now this time of year, to me it's almost like depressing, because it's like you don't have the reputation to really get the listing. You want to get the business, you want to work towards that, but you don't have the marketing materials to really get to that point, right? And so a lot of times I look at, let's say at the beginning right now, I tend to ask this question: what do you use today to market yourself? If you have no listings today, how do you market yourself today, right? And the first thing that they tell me is, well, you know what? I do send out a card, maybe it's an announcement card, something like that. The only problem is, a lot of times what they do is they don't talk about themselves enough. And so what I mean by that is, for a lot of beginning agents, they have to tell their own story. And so do you guys have agent brochure? For a lot of you guys, I think in your listing presentation, you guys have a brief bio and things like that. It's time to really extract that piece out of that listing presentation, like you kind of talked about earlier, but really have an agent bio, or like kind of like an agent promotional piece, whether if it's like tri-fold piece that talks about your services, the neighborhood you live at, little things like that, and really at least have something to market your services with. Because if you don't have the production to do it with, you got to market yourself. And for you to do that, you have to do a couple of things. One, talk about market trends and position yourself as the expert, right? Two, bake yourself in the community. How do you really do that? And what I mean by that is have strong taglines. A lot of people who tend to market themselves outside of the community or inside the community don't have that tagline. So what I mean by this is, here's a perfect example, okay? Mary Smith, right, is marketing a new area, a new neighborhood, right?
Right.
She doesn't have a tagline. She's thinking, hey, I should go with the traditional power, knowledge, trusted source, that kind of stuff, right? But it's still general.
Integrity, right?
Yeah, it has that stuff to it. But you want to really bake yourself in a community. So let's say, for example, it might say something like Mary Smith, Woodland Park Specialist, or Mary Smith, Woodland Park's most trusted source. Something like that to really tie people into that, And so it's just little things like that when you think about your marketing approach and how to, we talk about strategies all the time. Strategy at a high level is not just, hey, I'm going to market 5,000 homes. We got to get into detail and the psychology of that sale at some point.
Right.
And sometimes it's like a tug of war. Am I talking too much about myself, or how do I, it kind of goes back and forth a lot of times. So I kind of think about little things like that. The other thing too is, for you guys who are producing agents, this time of year, a lot of people put together events where they bring the whole community together. So after you have that reputation in a community, I'm gonna show you a couple examples. I have this one gal, she basically puts together, she does this card like this, and it says this. Check this out, you guys. Share the love. She gives out these really awesome pies. It's free, people come by. I wanted to kind of show this to you guys, so it's pretty cool, And she has multiple events like this where she puts, she gets people to come to these events. She gives away the pie and gets a free conversation, right? This is something that she's put together for something like this. This is for Santa Claus is coming to town. Hey, to get your photo with Santa, check that out, right? So again, it's all free. She puts it together. And you know what? These things actually work. Sometimes it feels gimmicky, but they actually work. I'll tell you a quick story that I was working with an agent out in Summerfeld, for example.
Okay.
And Summerfeld's
in California, by the way.
Right, Summerfeld, California. And he rented out this ice skating rink. And I said to myself, I always hear about these events. I wonder if people actually turn up, right? So I go to this event, and I was blown away. And I said, Jeff, man, how did you put this event together? How did you get all these people together? And he said, I invited my whole neighborhood. I invited my sphere list. And when they came, they had a really good experience. They had food that was being served.
Minimize Facebook.
And it was a really good experience. And just to see the community really come together, and to see how he's working with a lot of people, just interacting, getting tons more engagement, seeing people skating around, and just seeing people just being happy working with this guy. And today, he does that every year now, So I'm pretty excited to go to the next event. But it's just great to see. A lot of people think it's actually kind of gimmicky to a certain way, but it's actually not. It actually works pretty well. And a lot of my top agents, they tend to do this. And there's people who actually do like donations towards the end of the year, that kind of thing. So it all comes
coats, stuff like that, toys for tots.
Exactly. Right. So
yeah, and it. I've seen a bunch of those too, and they've worked really well. The most interesting one I ever saw. It was an agent out of California here, and what he would do is he would do dumpster day. Now it sounds crazy, right? You basically, people are taking trash to you.
Yeah.
But what he would do is he'd get a dumpster and he'd put it in the neighborhood, and he would send out, in this case, a postcard inviting people to come to dumpster day. And he'd end up getting, hundreds of people there. Sometimes he'd need more than one dumpster.
Right.
And the thing is, everybody has stuff they want to get rid of,
Right.
and they don't want to go to the dump or whatever. So these are really creative marketing solutions, but ultimately, I think what it boils down to is, again, this engagement. How do you meet people in the community? How do you actually connect to them on a personal level? Now, if somebody comes to your ice skating rink or they come to your dumpster, and you may only have, a minute or two to speak with them, but it can create, that 1 or 2 minutes can create a lasting lifetime impression. It's like they've given back to the community, and that's given them now the right to basically communicate with them. So when we talk about like this social proof and everything else in engagement marketing, to some effect, you're asking for permission to communicate, right? It's like, hey, if I just cold call you on the phone, you're like, who's this jerk calling me on the phone?
Do I know the person?
Do I know them?
Do I know the person?
What are you selling? Click, right?
Right.
But all of a sudden, if I turn that around and I create a situation where I'm providing you value, it's like, okay, well, I now know you.
Right.
You now have permission
Right.
to talk to me. And you know what? I'm that much more likely to actually reach out to you. And you can do elaborate, giving away pies and various things, but you can also do stuff that, doesn't cost any money. I had an agent that I used to work with that what she would do is she would go around on one day and she'd take video of all the parks in this particular town.
Yeah.
And she'd post the video up on her blog, and all she really needed to do was use her iPhone, and she created effectively 12 months of marketing in one day by visiting 12 parks and talking about how those parks worked for children of a certain age. Now, it didn't have anything to do with what was going on in the real estate market at that moment, but what it did do was create that engagement.
Right.
And I remember talking to her, people would, start to think, okay, well, you're the Foster City specialist and you know what's going on in the community.
Sure.
And then the other thing that she would do that I thought was really cool, oftentimes there were construction projects going on in that particular town.
Right.
And she would be that live reporter, right?
Yeah, awesome.
When you think about like what you get on CNN or Fox News or something, and you get this kind of crazy news, you don't know whether it's real or fake. And it's not very local. It doesn't always directly impact what you're doing in your life. But if somebody can actually give that hometown feel, and then it then becomes much more relevant, and you can get engaged again.
It is. And one of the things I know for firsthand this thing, right? And in the area that I stay at, there's always new developments coming up. And I don't have time sometimes to pull over and look at that big sign that says, oh, it's January 2000, whatever it is, right? And so a lot of times I want to be almost like, hey, I wish someone would give me that information,
Right.
And so by providing that kind of insight, I think it shows tons of value. I mean, this is similar to something like having local events, So,
Minimize your Facebook window. This thing's a little laggy.
yeah,
Okay.
and probably put tons of echo. I'm not sure. So we'll have to double check. Let us know, you guys. I mean, like I said, this is our second time doing this. We're hoping to do better improvement. We're getting more equipment and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting how we evolve from this whole thing. Okay. Let's talk about this thing here. This was an interesting topic. I'm not sure we kind of touched on this a little bit, but implementing strategies.
So let's do that next. I
Sure.
think, again, if you have any comments, feel free to add them in and we'll answer them as we go. But kind of closing out on the leads, we didn't really talk about how to get leads. What we talked about are things people are doing in marketing. And I want to bring it back to that just for a second, which is, you can buy leads. It's pretty simple. You can go to Zillow, you can go to Facebook, and you can do ads and buy leads, or you can create leads, right? And they're very different kinds of leads.
Right.
So if I go out and I spend $5,000 on Facebook, right, I may get 50 people that are from that neighborhood to click a button and do something, right? I don't know them. They don't know me. I then have to go and take those leads and figure out some way to actually interact with them and create some kind of synergy. Or I could do something as simple as creating a Facebook or a YouTube page maybe, and start talking about the community and allowing people to engage and subscribe and so on.
Right.
And so this is really a long tail strategy. We're not talking about instantly getting a listing tomorrow. We're talking about building a business that's going to be sustainable for years and decades.
Absolutely.
And the things to do that, and here at CoreFact we do a lot of direct mail and farming, and that's a key strategy in that kind of philosophy of building a sustainable business. And so when it comes back to that lead generation, it starts with, I think, ultimately your sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. And your friends and family, and ranking those people, and then establishing a periodic communication with them, whether that's monthly or quarterly. You have to find the right cadence that doesn't annoy them, but also allows you to keep yourself top of mind with them. And people, particularly in the farming side where we work a lot, often neglect the sphere of influence. And what we know from talking to so many agents, referrals are still a huge part of the business. And asking for that referral is a key strategy. Mm-hmm. And the people that are most likely to refer you are obviously people in your sphere. So, how do you ask them? How do you engage with them? Through direct mail, through Facebook, through email, through all the different channels. Keeping on top of that, and we'll talk a little bit about building a plan later.
Right.
But that's it. And then when we talked about all those cool marketing ideas within a neighborhood, what is the ultimate strategy there? It's not that you're going to put them into a list called the neighborhood community. You actually want them to be part of your sphere.
Absolutely.
Right? These are going to be clients for life.
Sure.
And ultimately, so many agents will work with somebody, and that'll be the last transaction they ever have with that person. Now imagine, your typical, family, or they're probably going to move 2 to 3 times within their lifetime, and it would be great if you could get 6 transactions out of that, which is possible. And that just philosophically, I think is the strategy we're talking about today.
Right.
And so maybe now we can transition to what.
Let me just touch on one more thing on here.
Okay.
The lead sources, because I think a lot of people are just trying to wonder where's the lead coming from, and so I want to get a clear definition of what a lead actually means, because I get sometimes I ask people this all the time, and one of the things I ask them is, how many leads are you working with? Is different from marketing to, let's say, your sphere, for example. I think there's phases of a progression of how to nurture that lead to get them, or prospecting to nurturing that relationship to get to that lead. But I think the lead source could come from many different areas. So for one, a lot of top agents that I work with, when I ask them about what their sphere list is like, they go, which sphere list? Because they've actually segmented their list so much where it's almost targeted marketing, right? So for example, when they host open house, anyone that comes in an open house, they're gathering all their information, right? That right there is a lead, right? Lead source, okay?
Yes.
The referral-based business, like you talk about past clients, is different from friends and family, right? So they have another segment for that, right? So there's all types of channels of where to get that lead from, whether if it's from online, from social media, whether if it's from your LinkedIn account, whether if it's from Zillow. Those all, at some point, need to be broken up and not just treated as one big funnel, but almost, I'm just talking more towards the segmentation side of the lead source, and be able to come up with the real strategies that track that. Because now we're thinking, well, we can't put everyone in the same bucket, because now the marketing kind of changes, and if we do that, now we're not really getting CTAs that really resonate with people. So keep that in mind for you guys who are just building your sphere list. At some point, really consider segmentation at some point. So, and that would help with the marketing, especially for someone like myself who says, hey, I want to market to my sphere list, but what does that mean? And who's your sphere? Are they investors? I don't know who that is, So,
right.
And I don't want to generalize, because I think sometimes the messaging just doesn't fit that particular, cadence or that particular person. So, with that said, let's jump into the next one before we run out of time here.
So on that note, one one area in terms of segmenting your sphere. There's a great book out there. It's called Referral a Lifetime by Tim Templeton. It's I read it a number of years ago, and they really talk about the eight. His philosophy was, you segment everybody into A, B, or C.
Yeah.
Where A are your top prospects. Those are people that you could call them, and if your car needed a jump start, they'd come over.
Right.
B, might be somebody that they're going to know you really well, and C would be people that you're an acquaintance with, and that's a key thing. And then if you think about the neighborhoods, you could further segment from there.
Right.
But really, it's at the end of the day, it's a relationship business, and so
Definitely.
I think you rank them the closer they are in terms of somebody you would consider a friend versus an acquaintance. And,
Right.
So that's interesting, Chio. So let's talk a little bit about the next question people are asking is implement strategies and share what top 1% agents are doing now. And somebody said, I need a farming strategy that works for me. So where would we go with that?
All right, so I have something to say about this, which is really interesting, okay? If we come up with a plan, we need to stick to a plan. The hardest thing, I want to keep going back to this because strategies don't work when you don't stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
If the strategy gets broken off, when you sidetrack, when you feel like, hey, I'm discouraged because I didn't get a listing from my last mailer. And we should not really look at strategies like that. There's no immediate and get us the results that we want like that. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And for the guys that does happen, it's like, man, they got lucky. It's like winning a lottery ticket sometimes.
Exactly.
So with that said, I think there's a lot of different strategies. Like for a lot of my guys that I work with, top producing agents right now, they're really looking to more dominate the market.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is they want to penetrate another agent's market.
Sure.
And get more market share. A team that's growing, that has maybe between like 2 to 4 team members, that's now going to be at 6 to 8 next year in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
they need more territories. And so a lot of guys, what they do now is they'll do something like this. They want to test their reputation in markets, right? They might do something like microfarming. So not put a heavy investment into.
So what does microfarming mean?
So microfarming is something like this. I have an agent who mails like about 15,000 homes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What he does is something like this, because he's not going to invest and go, hey, I got a new agent, I want them to market in this particular neighborhood, but I don't think I'm going to dump in 5,000 mailers to this particular neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So what he's going to do is he's going to mail something a little bit smaller, maybe test the market a little bit with his name behind it. So he'll do something like maybe 200, 300, 500 homes, something like that. And sometimes he'll even go into a smaller area. So what I mean by that is he might have a brand new agent that needs a lot more encouragement in this business. So he might say, hey, I need to work on this townhouse area,
Mm-hmm.
right? Townhouse has maybe like about 100 homes, for example, right? And what he'll tell this agent is, hey, we're going to penetrate this area, but let's work this townhouse area first because we know it has high turnover, right? So he'll go in there, and I got a guy that does this really, really good.
Right.
He's kind of like my townhouse condo guy, right? And here's what he does, right? So what he does is, and this is, we've done this over probably like about what, 10, I would say probably 10 years now, right? He's probably, since that time, he's probably brought in, I would say maybe 4 or 5 pretty substantial townhomes. And so what he does is he always does a running count of all the homes that he sold. So for example, this one townhouse condos area had like about 200 homes in this area, right? And he basically, over about 4 years, he sold into that area. He positioned himself as like the townhome expert, and everyone in the complex knew him as the specialist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he kept a running count of all the homes he sold. So every marketing just listed card he said, he'll say something like another home just listed, number 147. And over 8 years, think about this. It's really funny, right? 200 homes he markets to, he's doing like about 200 plus something listings, right?
So he's basically almost 100% market share. He sold every home in there.
Well, the thing is, he sold the home sometimes twice over.
Right. Right.
But anyways, it's a really compelling story when you just look at the running count number. I love that. It's like tallying something like that, right? So
let me ask you a question, because I saw somebody posted online. They said, "Well, I've tried farming and it didn't work for me."
Yeah.
What would you say to that? Because I hear this a lot from people.
It is, and a lot of people, here's the thing that I always look at like true, like almost stats and facts, right? A lot of times you look at like something like this, like email. I mean, the open rate's ridiculous. Here, I'm gonna show you guys something that's like it's pretty insane, okay? And guys, I just want to show you guys here.
And while he's figuring that out, if you have any other comments, feel free to enter them at any time.
Okay, so I have probably like what 3 emails, right? Okay.
3 mil counts.
Yeah, and this is crazy but when you see my messages here, and you can look at that, check that out, you guys. 200 some thousand email messages. Okay, I haven't read any of them. I'm never gonna catch up to it. So, but the one thing that gets me is when something gets mailed into, it's direct, right?
Right.
Mail's different, right?
Right.
Or maybe social influence. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like somewhere and maybe I check in and it's a different connection. And farming, I can tell you about this about farming. A lot of people do get discouraged by direct mail. And it's a commitment thing. It's how do I create a habit like these top producers do? Because the top producers, they got something going out every month. We always talk about the whole peaks and valleys kind of thing, right? A top producer, they got a plan, it goes out every month, right? Here's the beginning agent, right? I get the listing, I'm working on a listing, and I forget to market myself, right? Then when I sell the listing or sell the property, right, I work on promoting myself. So now you have this peaks and valley effect, right? You have this up, down, up, down, up, down kind of thing.
Right.
Top producers, their thing's going straight across. All they're worried about is really,
and it's also theirs are going up. They're usually increasing their
Exactly.
marketing, consistently as they grow their business.
And a lot of it is automation, but it goes back down to, do I have a plan for all my strategies? Do I have a plan for every opportunity I really have? And if you don't have that plan, you don't have a strategy.
Okay, so actually that's a great point, Chio. And as we start to run out of time here, the third thing that was most asked from people is, I need a plan to stay on top of my work, and then what would be an effective plan for next year, and how do I stick with it? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that before we close this out.
Yeah. So one, I would say, if you're a beginning agent, let's just start basic. If we don't have the budget to mail consistently once a month, let's do it once every 2 months.
Okay.
If we can't do one every 2 months, let's just do one every 3 months. This is for someone who's beginning, right? Get in a habit of doing something consistently. And then let's talk about something like this: is if I don't have any listings, how do I get a reputation, right? So a lot of times I think, one, you send cards like a market update type of a card, you show trends around the neighborhood, and two, you try to educate the homeowner. A lot of people out there today are always looking for, hey, how do I get, I'm thinking about selling, what's my next step, So how do you educate homeowners about things like that? And then for the guys who are actually, top producing agents, I think a lot of that is, hey, how do I really make my marketing a lot more effective this year? And what I mean by that is literally look into every little thing that I do this year and how do I make those improvements, right? And it can be something where, hey, my open house is just not that great. Am I really leveraging that opportunity enough right now in my open house? So what I mean by that is I've been to several open houses, and there's two things that I see: brochures and business cards. That's it. I don't see anything else, right? And so a lot of times, I'm thinking, hey, this is a huge opportunity. So many people are coming through the door. Am I really maximizing the potential of this listing to really get the reputation that I need to really get more additional business? And so what I mean by that is looking at things and saying, hey, when I come into the open house, is there an open house sign-in book? Little things like that. And I'll show an example of one.
And by the way, while he's pulling that up, if you guys look at your screen right now, we have a quick poll on how do you feel about your reputation and what you think the people in your neighborhood, how they feel about you. If you could go ahead and click on that really quickly, it'll help us out.
Yeah, so we're always creating stuff like this all the time here, and I'm sure you guys can see this.
Can they see this?
I gotta switch back to you. But other people on Facebook, they can post.
Okay, cool.
You just have to switch back to you present.
How do I do that?
Let me close this. Here it is. Is it back? Chris Burnley.
Close poll.
Close poll. Yep.
All right, cool. We're back. We're still learning this technology here, so it's
we're old school, but we'll get to the new school soon. But here's some open house sign-in books or registry books or whatever you want to call it. Different designs that I think a lot of people are trying to take advantage of. More leads for them for like an open house, for example. I have a lot of guys who are just looking to, especially on the buyer side. If you're a buyer's agent, a lot of times you might have something. I want to talk a little bit about this particular strategy because I find it really interesting, and it really originated from lenders. So, and it's really this thing. It's whenever you help a buyer buy a house, you basically have almost like a closing gift. But this is one of those things where hey, we've moved cards. These are really cool. It kind of shows, and this is like a gift that the buyer's agent would give to the buyer in the new
Or actually,
house.
the seller might give to, you can do it on both
Either way,
sides
right.
because they both moved. And it's an opportunity to brand not only yourself a little bit with it, but also to give something of value to your client.
Right. And this is almost like practice that I think a lot of lenders do. I see some agents do it, but you don't see much of it. You know?
Right.
So, and also it's another good, just like a closing gift. A lot of times you're always wondering, what am I going to get this guy? You
Right.
know?
So
Can't go wrong with this one.
We are running out of time, and one of the things I wanted to talk to you quickly about it, some of the resources we have here at CoreFact for you. We have a great program. We call it the CoreFact Academy. It's free to everyone. If you go to corefact.com and sign up, you'll have access to the Academy. And one of the things we have there is some articles on business plans. And in fact, we even have sample spreadsheets where you can create a business plan if you've never done one before. You can fill in everything from what you want your production to look like, how many listings you're looking to get, and it'll help you build out some of the techniques to kind of get that plan in place so that you have something that you can consistently work on. We talk about having a plan and being consistent with it. You can't be consistent with something that isn't written down. I mean, because then it's always changing and it's always what you remembered. So really, step one in any plan is to document it. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I mean, you can just put a little spreadsheet or a Word doc together and say, here's what I'm going to do in 2020. And then, every month follow up with that and then track, what have I actually done and what's working? If I'm doing direct mail, how many leads am I generating? If I'm doing Facebook, how many leads am I generating? And then also, what's the quality of that lead? Right. And then maybe on a quarterly basis, engaging and seeing, what's really working, what's not. Right. Now, we don't recommend changing your plan that often. I'd say, at the fastest speed in my mind would be quarterly, maybe even half year, because ultimately marketing takes time and you have to see it work before you can actually get good measurements out of it. But there are some tools again at corefact.com, and one of the things also that I wanted to talk to you about is that we are here, Chio, myself, as well as all of our staff here at CoreFact to help you. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is we provide free consultations. And so at the end of this this Facebook Live here, we're going to have an email go out as well as a link that will allow you to sign up for a consultation. And all that means is that we're going to have a dialogue, and we're going to talk about your marketing, what's working, what's not. We're not asking you to buy anything. We're not trying to sell you anything. If you want to use our services, great. But ultimately, let's talk about your marketing, your community, your reputation, how you're engaging, and how we could potentially tweak that, and things that we've seen given your circumstances that we think can make you more effective.
Right, and it's a lot of those things that you really hit the spot when you said that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think when we're working on strategies that it's almost like, hey, we really have to understand where someone's at in their point of career, what they've been doing before in the past with regards to marketing, have they been actively marketing, things like that. The great part about coming up with a plan to me is it's just like brands. It evokes emotion, but the plan to me at some point evokes confidence. If you have a plan, I've seen some agents who come in here and they don't have a plan, and there's like almost like a depression state sometimes. They feel like they don't know what to do, what's the next step. They don't have someone to kind of give them some guidance along the way. And then when we come up with the plan and it's presented and it shows them, here's exactly what we're gonna do, the confidence goes, oh, it's just past the roof, And that's really great. That's something that I really wanna see a lot of people, is to have a belief in a plan. If you don't have a belief in a plan, you're not gonna stick to it. You're gonna give up 2 months later.
You're right.
But if you're confident and you see a great design and you see the great language that's being used and you see the strategy, you see the frequency, there's so much more confidence that comes along with that. And so, talking to you guys would be great. give us a call. We'd love to just kind of get that dialogue going and talk about plans. So.
Right, so I'm going to two quick announcements, and then we'll answer some of the questions we've got online. So number one is we're going to be at the NAR convention this week. So starting on Friday, we'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Both Chio and myself will be there, along with a bunch of the Corfax staff. And so if you're going to be going to the NAR, come by our booth and say hello to us. We'd love to chat with you, meet with you, and tell us you saw us live. That would really make our day. And then second is we have another webinar coming up with Sarah Layton, and she's going to come. She's going to do a webinar on how to share valuable content. She's an expert in this industry as well. So some of these things that we do are not always us. It'll be experts from outside that we bring in. And then, so given that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these questions. Some people sounds like they were having some difficulty with some of the audio. I hope that improved. Apologize for that. We'll try to get that better next time. This one gentleman here, Gabby says, I'd like to know if you have a good 4-page newsletter template for a monthly farm. And yes, we have lots of these types of products. Not all of them are online. If you give us a call, we can help you with that. Chio produces a lot of these for top producing agents. In some cases, we write unique content specifically for them, or we use content that we copyright that we use for a lot of agents. It really depends. But you can reach out to us and we can show you some examples of that. And let's see here. Okay. All right. So another person said, I live in a non-disclosure state. How do you mark with that? And I think they're specifically talking, at Corfax we have some very unique products that incorporate a lot of analytical data around farms, doing things like home estimates or showcasing recent sales in a neighborhood, all done automatically. And so some of those things work really well in disclosure states and non-disclosure as well. And there's 13 non-disclosure states here in the United States. Not sure too much what I can say about that, but I would say that what we're talking about today is there's great marketing you can do is what I'll call filler marketing, where you're asking people things about like the value of your home and giving them a free tool online to get some of that information and to drive a lead back to you. But there's also taking it to the next level, which is really about customizing it to your voice, to your brand, to the things that are much more hyper local. And I think a great farming strategy is to incorporate both those components because while we can create you a great standard campaign, if you can bring it down to things that are more relevant to that local community and putting the content in there, you're going to have a great result with it. Now, that does require a little bit of extra work on your part because, here at Corfax, we can't figure out what's going on in Casper, Wyoming. We just don't have feet on the ground in every area of the U.S., but you do. And so we can provide tools to help you take that local content, plug it in, and try to improve your engagement. So hopefully that answered your question. Do you have any comments on that, Chio?
Yeah, I was gonna say too is that a lot of times too we're always thinking about sending out something like postcards all the time. And a lot of my top producers that I work with, we're always trying to think about the client side a lot. What is the experience like for someone? If I receive 12 postcards a month, that might get boring after a while. And if I've done marketing like this for the last 15 years, it will be really, really boring. Right? So a lot of the guys that I work with, we're always trying to make things interesting. So what I mean by that is a marketing campaign might not just be a postcard. It could be something like an EDDM 4-page newsletter that's involved in there as well. It could be something like a letter stuff in an envelope as well. So think about this. This month I might receive a postcard. Next month I have this nice flat newsletter. Next month I have something to open. You don't know what you get almost, but the experience of that versus maybe a postcard every month, I think at some point, if you're a top producing agent, think about those things because I think it's the experience on the other side as well that really brings in that brand. So.
Okay, so I got another question here. It says, is anybody using Facebook ads? and lots of our clients are, it's not a product that we provide, but we get a lot of feedback on it. We do a lot of Facebook ads ourselves, and generally the at least the feedback that I've received in having lots of communications with this, there are various pain points. One is that, while you can control your budget on with Facebook ads, it can grow very rapidly. You can spend $5,000 very quickly on Facebook ads, and the leads that you actually get are
quality leads. Right?
Well, they're oftentimes not even relevant. You try to nail it down to a particular neighborhood, or you try to put an ad around somebody selling their house, and random people click through. So you got to end up doing a lot of sorting. Now there is value, and some people are doing quite well with it. We often recommend using an audience, and an audience means that instead of trying to pick out random people, plug your sphere of influence in there. And so if you take a list of, say, 500 people that you are connected with, and you have their email, you might get 50 to 60% hit rate. And what that means is that Facebook will be able to recognize 50 to 60% of those people. And so that when you create your advertisement and you put it through the Facebook platform, those 50 to 60% of the people are going to see it. Now, then it comes down to engagement and how relevant your ad is to them, and how personalized can you make it. If, like Chio talked about before, if you really segmented your lists well, maybe an A, B, and C kind of scenario, you could have 3 different types of ads.
Absolutely.
And that's, hyper-targeted marketing, really cool stuff. And that's about all I'd have to say on Facebook. We could talk about this all day. But that was a good question, and thank you for that. Somebody asked, how do you feel about direct mail? I love direct mail. That's what we do here at CoreFact. And direct mail really works. I think you don't have to take our word for it. It's very easy. If you look across any major brokerage and you typically see who the top producing agents are, probably 8 out of 10 of them are effectively using direct mail. Now, there are some people that come up with some very innovative, unique strategies that don't use direct mail, but most of the listing agents are in it, and it's been working for over 100 years.
Long time.
Which says it's an old school technology, as I think Chio said just a few minutes ago.
Right.
But one of the things is, don't always get discouraged by old school technology. Maybe I'm old school, but when I like to talk to people, I don't typically text them, or I often call somebody. If I need more than a yes and no answer, I need to do something that is in any way complicated, I'm picking up my phone and I'm talking to somebody. Now, if you think about home ownership, buying and selling homes, investors, it's very unlikely you're going to get a yes or no answer. These are very nuanced types of situations, and each one of them requires expertise, and that's why you're in the equation.
Right.
And it's hard to show expertise in 140 characters or less, or something like that.
One of the things I would also say too is just how do you break out of the with direct mail? How do you break out of the status quo kind of thing? And what I mean by that is direct mail too, and just print in general. It just sounds like an old school kind of a thing, but we here at CoreFact, we've done so much with the print side. What I mean by that is, for example, leverage your open house, for example, with some really nice sign writers. Actually, let's show those seasonal sign writers. These are pretty interesting. I think these are really cool. It's not like the regular standard, square status quo type of a sign writer, but you get the holiday stuff, and it makes it more, festive. You get people into the mood a little bit more, and you create more of a brand with it, a brand recognition with it. So these are the type of products that, for us, it's a good way to kind of separate your marketing a little bit and just have a different experience with your brand. So.
Right, and at the end of the day, it should be fun too. It's not. This is business, right? But when we go into business, if you're doing something that you have passion for, whether that's it could be anywhere. It could be on transforming that home that we talked about at the beginning, and taking it from creating curb appeal and other things that are going to get that home the highest potential offer, or it's helping a client through a particular situation where they need to move or they're getting divorced or anything like that. Ultimately, this passion that you have for the business, you should embrace that as much as possible and put it into your marketing, because when you're excited about something and you get up at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning because you can't sleep because you want to get your day started, life is so much more fun.
Yeah.
In my world, at least, I don't want it to feel like work. I want to make it feel like love. And you can make lead generation, you can make farming, you can make working with your clients, your passion. And I know a lot of you do, because I talk to you all the time. But that's my sort of closing comment there. And so
We have 3 other comments, one on Facebook.
okay, we got 3 more. Let me see here. So Chio, what's your passion?
There's probably many of it, but I think the biggest passion I have is just really getting to the end game a little bit, helping people really improve their brand a lot, and then 2, I think just diving deep into strategy, and figuring out what might work, what hasn't worked, and where we can make improvements on. I just think there's just so many opportunities that a lot of agents just don't leverage enough of, and whether that's leveraging their open house, marketing to their sphere, looking at their strategy and saying, hey, maybe I can make an improvement here and there. I mean, that's to me is probably where the passion's at, is the problem solving aspect of it. So
I've got a couple more questions I saw here. Emma is asking, how would this work for non-high dollar properties? So we're not working a luxury market here. We're working cookie cutter, but generally a good farm.
right.
What are some techniques there? We've got 3 more minutes.
I don't know, luxury market is probably more of a, whenever, at least the guys I work with, whenever they have this high luxury market, a lot of it is stats. You'd be surprised, a lot of it is, a lot of those guys, and it's really because of the audience, I mean, a lot of times in the luxury market, you have business owners, you have successful lawyers, doctors, and that kind of stuff, and they're really into data. And so it's a different approach, but also they want to see things that are clean, and also don't just show data and don't do anything. That's the worst thing. It just bothers me sometimes is we give them like a market update, but then we don't analyze the data to make value of what that data means. You know what I mean? Just having little things like one of the guys that I work with, he has 4 segments at the bottom of his market updates that I really, really love. And one of them is consumer confidence. Is it going up or down? Is the home values, are they going up and down? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? He has little indicators, and it's really a sum of all the data that he's presented. And so, that kind of stuff really, I think, goes a long way. But in the luxury market, I think there's not just that, it's also the approach of how that thing's being delivered. Do not send EDDM to the luxury market. For those of you who try EDDM, don't do it for luxury market. It's just not that effective. And what I mean by that is because, for one, it's just not personal. These guys will just toss it. They will. All right.
Yeah, and I know the question was about the Lauren market. So, I worked with an agent. He's actually a friend of mine, and he focused on mobile homes, which, oftentimes people think those are the lower end of the market. We used to joke, we call it wheel estate instead of real estate. But the interesting thing about it is sometimes what you find in some of the lower priced properties, whether it's condos, townhouses, PUDs, or mobile homes, which sometimes don't even require an agent. But what you'll find is there's often more turnover, and so while your individual commission may be lower on an individual transaction, you get a lot more of them. The other thing is that there's often less of a competitive situation. People aren't running out to say, I want to be the mobile home specialist. So you end up taking a lot more market share. And as Chio talked about statistics, I mean, oftentimes when you're thinking about marketing an area, it's really about understanding and going in and doing some research to find out what's moving. And there's absolutely no shame in going after those markets. And sometimes they're a great business to build. and you can segment your marketing, from anything from the mobile home to the townhouse, to the luxury $20 million listing, which is, requires a ton of marketing and are often difficult to sell. And you're often looking at, buyers that are from, anywhere in the country and sometimes overseas. So each one of these types of situations requires a unique strategy. We can help you with some of that, or at least we can give you some stories about people who we've seen successfully do this.
Yeah, the one thing too, I just want to apologize, Emma. I thought it was luxury market, but no, this is the lower end market. So, one real quick thing too, just on the lower end markets too, because of the commissions that you get from the sale and things like that. It's all about economics a little bit. And so one of the things that I would do is probably look into sending something like a 4x6 mailer, maybe something a little bit smaller, costs a little less, but gets mailed first class. And then also look into, hey, how do I really build my reputation in those particular areas? And if you do have a lot of sales, make sure we're always promoting those sales, all the time. So just want to get back to that, and I do apologize for that.
All right, and so hopefully this has been very enjoyable to you. Now for my shameless marketing plug, CoreFact, we're here to help you with your marketing. We provide lots of direct mail services, property flyers, property promotion, strategy, pretty much everything across the board with respect to real estate marketing. Like I asked earlier, we're going to be sending out some links to allow you to get a consultation with us. We'd love to talk to you and do that. We're going to be again at NAR the remainder of at the end of this week. I guess that's starting tomorrow through the weekend, and we'd love to see you there. And then we have some secret offers. We've launched our pop-up program, and so we're going to probably send out some links around that as well. If you need a VIP guest pass to NAR, we can get you one. It's free. Just let us know. We'll be happy to give you that. And then give us feedback on how the show went. Let us know what you think and what you'd like to see. And again, we are grateful for you to spend your time with us, and we hope to bring valuable information to you. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
All right, everybody, so long.